Welcome to the Punch Out. I'm your host, Alex McNinch, and welcome back for another episode this week to end off your week. Big episode here today covering the NL Central. We have previously covered two different divisions, the AL East and the AL Central. So today we're going to cover the NL Central to kind of round out your week. The reason we're kind of going out of order, if you have not been paying attention at all to the other episodes or haven't listened yet or don't know why, the MLB season is going to start a little early for two teams, the Cubs and the Dodgers. They will be playing a 2-game set in Japan on, I begin middle of next week. So we will not have the opportunity to speak on them before the actual opening day on the 27th. So we're going to go ahead and get them, the NL Central, out the way so we can talk about the Cubs today. And then on Monday, we'll talk about the NL West, get the Dodgers out of the way. That way, we cover both teams before their opening days. I believe on the 20th, 21st, 22nd, one of those 3 days. I don't know exactly which days out of those they'll be playing on the two. I should be knowing. I'm a baseball podcaster, but hey, we roll with the punches here. Talk about the NL Central today. No real other big news that has come out besides the Garrett Cole situation. I guess maybe we didn't talk about it on the last episode. We did. I know we talked about his elbow soreness and going on, but it's official now. He's got Tommy John surgery. If you guys have not been keeping up, it's official. He will be missing the entire 2025 season. So that's a big blow for the Yankees. Obviously, the curse of my podcast continues to happen. And once I record and talk about something in a positive light, here comes some bulldozer of bad news that just comes over and knocks it down. And it's unfortunate for Garrett Cole, obviously. You never want to see anybody injured, especially a guy at his stature and his age in his career with a Hall of Fame chance. Even despite him being on a rival team that I don't like, you never want to see anybody get hurt. So it's unfortunate for the Yankees. Their season's going to look completely different now because you're now an Aaron Judge injury away from everything just out the window for that team. But we're not talking about the AL East today. We're going to be talking about the NL Central. This division, it's always pretty competitive at the top half, and then normally the teams that's at the bottom tier are at the basement, whether it's the Pirates or the Reds in the past couple of years. The Brewers have really dominated this division overall for most of the years since COVID has happened. The Cardinals have been in there with their competitive teams, but we'll talk about them and how they've kind of taken a little bit of a dip in their future and how the team is going to be right now. But we'll start off with the first team being the Pittsburgh Pirates. Last year, this was a team that everybody knows obviously is young. Didn't really have as big of a farm system, but got lucky, or I don't want to say get lucky, but lucked out and got the first overall pick, which allowed them to draft Paul Skeens. Now, last year, Paul Skeens was amazing for this team, and it's kind of shaped the way that this group is going to be going forward with him at the helm being a superstar at just his first season in the majors. So kind of looking at the lineup, many guys to look at with note here. They're leading off Tommy Pham. They picked him up. He played for multiple teams last year. He's just a good guy to be a leadoff hitter. He's not going to hit for too high of an average. Has some pop still, but he's mainly a guy who's going to get on base for you. He'll be okay to under average or below average, defender. Not too much you're looking for there, but he's a veteran presence that has a voice in the locker room, has been there, done it, played in the postseason before many times, and leads off for your group to kind of get the thing started so that the guy like Brian Reynolds, who's hitting behind him, or O'Neal Cruz, who's 2 spots behind him, that are the cornerstones of your franchise when it comes to positional players, it allows them the opportunity to come out and hit with guys on base. Brian Reynolds being the main guy within this last year, hitting .275 with a .344 and on-base percentage of 119 OPS plus, popped 24 with 88 RBIs, had a 3.5 WAR. His big issue, he sucks in the field. They got him playing right. He's got an okay arm, but eventually this DH role is going to open up whenever Andrew McCutchen retires. Probably Brian Reynolds will slide into that position and not have to worry about his defense too much. -13 outs above average last year. Yikes. And then the other guy we mentioned that's going to be hitting behind Tommy Pham, O'Neal Cruz. other cornerstone of this franchise. Was once a shortstop. They converted him to outfield mid-year and to center field more specifically, and he was really solid. He has an incredible arm, super tall guy with a lot of pop, hit 21 with 76 RBIs last year, a 113 OPS plus. Just a guy that you are going to have in your lineup. They let him off for a while, had him hitting 2, finally finds a good slot here at 3 behind Reynolds and in front of McCutchen, who is still kicking it somehow for this team. This is probably his last year with the group, but he's DHing now full-time. Other guys on the roster, Joey Bart, who was once a top prospect, catching prospect for the Giants, has now found a new home in Pittsburgh with this pitching staff that he could work with really well. And the big thing for Joey Bart was he couldn't find a competitive at-bat when he was in San Francisco. Now, last year in 282 plate appearances, he hit 265 with a 799 OPS, 13 homers, 45 RBIs. He was super valuable at the plate last year. That's the biggest thing for Joey Bart. Was he ever going to find a way to be valuable at the plate? We knew his defense was going to be solid. Was he ever going to be a serviceable hitter in the MLB? Was it going to translate? It didn't immediately. So always finding a new home could help. Joey Bart obviously doing so. Other guys in this lineup, it kind of drops off after you get past the 5th hitter. DJ Stewart, a journeyman guy, really hasn't shown too much in the MLB. He's a fringe guy, the AAA and to the majors. Nick Gonzalez is a solid young piece. He hit 270 last year. He's not really going to give you too much power, but a good guy to get on base and hit for a high average. Brian Hayes, another former top prospect within this organization, who was very highly sought after and in trades whenever they were trying to acquire somebody when he had first gotten drafted and picked up with this team, and expected that his bat would be good in his rookie year. In his second year, his bat was really solid, and it's completely fell off the face of the earth now. And he's a 6 outs above average player. He's a really, really good Gold Glove caliber defender at the hot corner for the team. Isaiah Kiner-Falefa, the other guy to round out the roster, he's a serviceable shortstop to play stopgap for whenever their new drafted player, Connor Griffin, has a chance to pop up into the major leagues. One of the other big acquisitions of the offseason for this team was acquiring Spencer Horwitz from that 3-team trade we talked about last week when talking about the Blue Jays and the Guardians with the whole Andres Jimenez, Miles Straw, Luis Ortiz, Nick Sandlin trade that brought Spencer Horwitz over to Pittsburgh, allows them to get a first baseman going forward. So DJ Stewart's only a stopgap until Horwitz returns from his injury. I wrote down what it was, but I completely forgot exactly what it was. He had right wrist surgery, 6 to 8 weeks. He got that at the beginning of February, so probably expect him to come around by the end of May, beginning of June, which once he's in there, that is a perfect left-handed bat to have in the middle of your order to help round out this team in a good way. Great addition for them to be able to just move off Ortiz, the pitcher, when you have a plethora of arms at the top of your rotation. Get a guy at first base. They had been actively shopping, trying to get Tristan Casas from the Red Sox. There were rumors, so now you get a first baseman of the future in Spencer Horwitz. Guys on the bench, Andy Rodriguez, Jared Triolo, Adam Frazier, a veteran player in this league, returning back to Pittsburgh, and then Jack Sawinski, another guy who was a top 5-10 prospect in the organization and just didn't pan out to exactly what they wanted to. The lineup is okay. Nothing to really be infatuated over, but Brian Reynolds, O'Neal Cruz are 2 guys to be really excited about if you're the Pirates, and hoping that the prospects eventually can kind of just come up and perform at a level that can play around and surround this pitching staff that is the main group here with a lot of talent. And we talked about him already to start off the podcast. Paul Skeens being the main guy in this rotation that is going to be a mainstay within the MLB, is already a superstar in his first year. Everybody's followed his days since LSU winning the College World Series with the LSU Tigers, and everyone has fallen in love now with Paul Skeens, and they're on his side. He just keeps adding more pitches, keeps getting better somehow, some way, and He is so young, and 133 innings last year was limited at times because of his call-up at first originally, and as well as limiting his innings down the stretch. But he threw for 133, had a 1.96 ERA, a 9.47 WHIP, had an 11.5 K per nine, 170 strikeouts in that time, was a 6-win player. Unreal from him in his rookie campaign. And then the guys behind him are really not terrible at all. Mitch Keller was just signed to an extension last year, 4 ERA type of guy, but he's not afraid to punch guys out. Not really he's gonna limit the walks a little bit, although last year was getting hit kind of hard. Jared Jones is the other guy to really look out for. If you're looking for another young pitcher, he kind of broke out a little bit last year, but he's got electric stuff coming out of his arm. Throws about 98 from the right side in 121 and 2/3 innings last year, a 4 ERA with a 1.19 WHIP. Struck out 10 per 9. He's going to walk a little bit just because he throws hard and has some control issues, but he's a 2-win player overall. And those 3 guys are going to be the ones that you look at when going forward and trying to look at what is this Pirates rotation going to be. You're going to look at Paul Skeens. It's eventually going to be Jared Jones as the 2, and Mitch Keller is your 3rd guy. Those are the 3 mainstays in this rotation. Everybody else will follow suit and come behind them. The other 2 guys they got right now, Andrew Heaney and Bailey Falter, 2 left-handers, veterans in this league, traveled. Andrew Heaney, former World Series champion with the Rangers. He's always a mid-4 ERA guy, had a lot of promise at the beginning of his career with the Angels. Nothing really to be too excited about, but he strikes out a lot of guys, had 159 strikeouts last year. And he can be serviceable to switch things up to see a lefty every 4th day for this team. And then Bailey Falter, another lefty. Really nothing to be excited about there. Doesn't really strike anybody out. Uses hard contact. Starts to walk guys a lot more. Not too excited about him for the back end of this rotation, but every rotation needs a guy like this that's going to be in their ground ball pitcher to take the ball every 5th day and do it for the club. The bullpen, up and down. There are parts of this bullpen where you can look at it and be like, okay, I'm confident that there's going to be some pieces here going forward. But then there's also some where it's like, they just need roster spots. David Bednar being the guy and their closer who was unbelievable for multiple seasons, highly sought after in the trade market. And then last year and at the end of the year before in 2023, just kind of hit a plateau and really just wasn't the same guy anymore. A 5.77 ERA for him. His FIP was 4.8, so it was a little bit better. His WHIP was a 1.4, which means he was getting hit hard, walking guys more. Only 58 strikeouts last year. Had 26 saves, but he was a -1 WAR guy. It's unfortunate because he doesn't have a pitch that is movement-wise nastier than other closers and other guys in this bullpen. He has a very straight fastball. Splitter's really solid as well. His breaking pitch sometimes is there, sometimes it's not. But his fastball is his main pitch. But it's really, really straight and flat, which tends to get hit a lot more. And then when you're getting into counts where they're fighting and giving you good at-bats, your off-speed's not going to work out as well if you're not going to be able to throw it for a strike. And last year, Bednar couldn't do that very well. Other guys that are in the bullpen, Dennis Santana, they acquired from the Yankees last year. He threw 71 and 2/3 innings, had a sub-4 ERA out the pen. That's really not terrible at all. Colin Holderman, a guy I like a lot, in 51 and 1/3 inning, 3.16 ERA. Got hit and walked a little bit. His FIP was higher than it was, but I really like what Holderman. I like his stuff. He's got a good sinker. Carmen Mlazinski is another guy in the pen. A 3.3 ERA guy. Caleb Ferguson was on the Yankees and the Astros last year, split time. He's an okay piece, whatever piece. Justin Lawrence was a reliever, a submarine sidearm guy from Colorado. Not good if you were to expect what a Colorado pitcher looks like. Tim Meza, also in the Yankees last year, 6 ERA. Joey Wentz, another left-hander guy, well-traveled in this league. He's around a 5 ERA. So the bullpen really not too much to be excited about. But when you look at the front part of your rotation, you look at the middle of your lineup, you can't help but think that this team is going to have a lot of stuff going on in the future. And it's stuff to be excited about. Now, the Pirates aren't going to compete this year. That's just kind of the straight-up fact of the matter. They're not going to be the team that you're really expecting to take lead of this division. In fact, that's why I talked about them first, because I have them going towards the back end. But when Bubba Chandler eventually comes up this year to be your fifth starter, they expect a lot out of him. He should be really good. Connor Griffin, you're expecting him in a couple of years, was just drafted this past year, but already looks incredible at 18 years old. Tamar Johnson could come up at some point here in the next few years. There's so many guys for this group that are good. I don't want to say stopgap guys, but are good placeholders for eventually the next step to be taken over by those other young players. Now, could guys like Gonzalez continue to rise and find more pop? Sure. Could Triolo get into the lineup consistently every single day if he hits it well? Yes. Could Sawinski finally fill up to the promise that he had? Sure. But for the Pirates, it's all about how can we supplement the lineup around Reynolds and Cruz for right now to benefit them in their development. Can we try to get Ke'Bryan Hayes back into a hitter, a league average hitter at that? And then how can you find a guy outside of Paul Skeens, Mitch Keller, and Jared Jones to supplement that pitching rotation and shore up that bullpen so that they feel safe whenever they're done after 5 or 6 or maybe even 7 innings nowadays. I don't really have the Pirates going too much. I haven't won in 76 games. The same amount that I have the next team that we're going to talk about in the St. Louis Cardinals. And now the Cardinals are in a weird spot. And I only say that because they've got aging stars, they've got aging veteran players in both the lineup and rotation alongside the bullpen, and they're at a crossroads of trying to figure out what to do. They obviously let Paul Goldschmidt go. His contract ran up after trading for him from Arizona. That experience kind of failed a little bit in the grand scheme of things, although he was amazing and an MVP for the Cardinals. It didn't amount to the expectations that they had for him when they got him, as well as Nolan Arenado that they've been actively trying to trade, and that is a massive talking point of the entire offseason. Where's Nolan Arenado going to go? Could the Yankees be a team that now has a panic pivot and moves on from him and moves on to get Nolan Arenado so they can supplement that lineup a little bit better? Do the Astros go after him? The Cardinals are in a situation where they need to just kind of let it sit and wait and let Arenado prove that there are signs of regression, but he can still be so valuable to a team. And he'll have the chance to do that this year. They haven't projected cleanup hitting. But guys around him. Mason Wynn, super exciting player. Everybody knows him for his incredible arm at shortstop. But not many people think of him as a really good hitter like he should be. A 267 batting average last year. A 730 OPS, was 3 outs above average, hit 15 homers, driven 57. Just got to limit the strikeouts. If you're going to be a leadoff guy, you can't strike out 109 times in a season. Lars Nootbaar is moved to center field now. His whole thing is, can he be healthy? He wasn't the same hitter that he was in 2023 and 2022 while he was on Team Japan and one of the influential pieces for that team. Other guys, Wilson Contreras, who that whole situation is just a weird one, was signed there to be the catcher, and then now they're trying to back it up a little bit because they got guys like Ivan Herrera and Pedro Pages that are going to follow him in the catching order. And now it's like, well, we're paying this guy $17 to $20 million a year. He's still got a decent bat. Has an 848 OPS, a 136 OPS plus. Drove in 36 last year and only 358 plate appearances, played 84 games. So he's still valuable to the team, but obviously when it comes to the catching situation, you got other guys that are more suit for the future that we'll talk about as well. So you got to move him somewhere. They move him to first base. Obviously with Goldschmidt being gone, it's a little bit easier to make that transition right now. And then we talked about Nolan Arenado as well already. Guys at the back end, Brendan Donovan, just a really good utility player, going to play his ass off defensively, kind of everywhere, 6 outs above average for the guy. He hit a 278 last year, though. It's not like he's a terrible hitter, 112 OPS plus, drove in 73 guys, draws a decent amount of walks, 47 walks to 81 strikeouts. That's a really good ratio right there. And he posts for you. He played 153 games, had 652 plate appearances. That's all you can ask from a guy like him that's a utility player. Kind of like how Kike Hernandez has been valued so long by the Dodgers, or Chris Taylor was valued by the Dodgers. Those are the guys you want to have on your team. Brendan Donovan doing it from the left side, can play the corner outfields, play anywhere in the infield. That's very important and valuable to have to your team. Now we talk about a little bit about the catcher here, Ivan Herrera, who last year showed a lot of promise. Coming up from Memphis, the AAA team, and only played 72 games and 259 plate appearances, had a 301 batting average, 800 OPS, 124 OPS plus. Was really, really solid. 25 walks in his time to 53 strikeouts. Now, defensively, he's got some work to do on catching strikes and framing and working all that stuff, but the bat is so promising to where you got to let him try to figure it out defensively behind the plate. It was his young time in the MLB. He's going to figure it out. And again, when you're betting on these young guys, it's more important than whenever you're trying to bet on a guy that's in his 30s that you're paying so much money for. It's more important to focus on these younger guys. To round out the back end of this lineup, Alec Burleson, a guy that I like a lot. He had a really good year last year, 269 at batting average, 735 OPS, 21 bombs. He's going to be their DH. He can't play defense. -8 outs above average. He is horrible. Normally plays the corner outfields or first base. You just can't play him anywhere. You can't. That's kind of the theme that we're seeing here with this team is you got guys like Arenado and Contreras and Wynn who are really good defenders and Brendan Donovan, but then you got guys like Herrera and Burleson and then the next two guys, Jordan Walker and Nolan Gorman, that are just not good defenders at all. Jordan Walker was one of the top prospects in all of baseball, and the number one prospect for the Cardinals for so long, and they expected high things out of him. He came to the MLB and it just wasn't good. It wasn't. His swing was all out of shape. They took this offseason to kind of figure out and reshape his swing. His swing looks a lot more athletic now. He's like 6'5". Originally came up as a third baseman. They moved him to the corner outfield spots. He hasn't really settled in there and figured it out at all there. They sent him down to AAA in Memphis last year to try to figure things out. Hit really well in AAA. Came back up to the big leagues, hit only 201 at the plate. Struck out 50 times in that times 10 walks. Not good. Hopefully this spring, when I watch videos and watch him play, it's looked a lot more smoother, and it looks like he's kind of got that pop back, that natural pop that they really loved out of him at first. All he needs to do is play subpar defense out there to be valuable and try to find a way to continue to get on base more than he did at a 253 rate the entire year last year. Not good. And then the last guy to fill out the lineup, Nolan Gorman. Another guy that just had so much promise as a prospect, left-handed hitter, had so much pop. Originally second, third, first baseman. Finally found him at second base. You can't really hide him when you have a -6 outs above average. But a guy who's going to pop 19 homers, but he's going to hit 203. He's like a Kyle Schwarber in a bad year. So it's unfortunate that those are the guys that you have to stash at the bottom of the order when 4 years ago, if I were to tell you that Jordan Walker and Nolan Gorman were on the Cardinals' big league roster, they'd be like, oh, so they're batting third and fourth. No, they're not. They're batting 8th and 9th. And that's just the unfortunate part and the reality of where the Cardinals are. It's been a mishap from the entire organization with everything they've been trying to do with development. Chaim Bloom, the former Red Sox chief of baseball operations, is now taking over and kind of overseeing everything in the development and scouting department and trying to make these decisions to allow their team to focus on the young parts of their roster and their organization and kind of allowed those veteran players to supplement whatever the development is for these younger guys. Kind of move into the rotation. It's not good. That's really all I got for that. It's not good. Sonny Gray, former Cy Young Award finalist multiple times, as recent as, I believe, 2 years ago. He's normally a guy who strikes out a lot of guys, and he still did that at a decent rate last year with 11 K per 9. Limits the walks. Was really solid overall, a 3.84 ERA. Unfortunate part for him is he's making $25 million a year, around that at least. So it's not going to be the easiest contract to move off if you're trying to make room for younger guys, but it's what the reality of the situation is for the Cardinals, unfortunately. Guys like that, outside of him, Eric Fetty, they traded for last year at the deadline, hoping for a spark from the White Sox. Last year at a 5.5 WAR, was really, really good, limited the walks. He was originally a very underwhelming pitcher in the MLB and took his talents over to Korea, kind of figured some things out, was learning how to pitch, to contact more than anything else, and came right back to the MLB and translated perfectly. He's a guy that honestly could be the ace of this rotation if they trade Sonny Gray. He's the guy that you got to look at for going forward, especially when you're looking at the Cardinals and you start to kind of look, well, past these guys that they have right now, who are the next guys up that could potentially be the guys to be the mainstays in the rotation? And those guys may not be ready yet, even though they should be by now. Miles Michaelis, another guy, terrible. No offense, terrible. 5.5 ERA for the past 3 seasons. He's getting paid $16 million. You can't move his contract. He's not even worth being a starter. You can't move him to the bullpen because he throws 92. It's a terrible situation to be in. What's not a terrible situation is your converted reliever to a starter, Andre Pallante, who throws it really hard, has a really funky delivery and wind-up spot. He doesn't really strike too many guys out, walks a lot of guys. However, he is pretty solid overall. In 121 innings, had a 3.7 ERA with a 3.71 FIP, 8 hits per 9, which is not great, but not terrible. It's the development of him is going to continue from the reliever role to a starter. Steven Matz, the last guy in the rotation. He's an older guy coming off injury, just kind of a ground ball pitcher at this point, or not at this point, but his entire career has really been a ground ball pitcher. But at this point, even more now than ever, he's just whatever. Another guy who's making a lot of money that the Cardinals gave out, and they're regretting it instantly after doing so. The bullpen, they've got some intriguing pieces. Ryan Helsley being the main guy. 49 saves last year, was league leading. An awesome guy at 2 ERA. They've been trying to trade him all offseason just to get some value because they need value. I would love Ryan Helsley on my baseball team. I'm sure everybody else would too because he's an unbelievable closer in this league. Last year, 79 strikeouts in his 65 games that he pitched in. Really, really good. I think he is the top 5 closer in baseball when healthy. That might be a hot take, but he's just, when you're a guy who's 6'4", 6'5", and you throw 101 from the right side with a nasty slider, it's hard to beat a closer like that. Those are the guys you want in the back end of your rotation. Other guys in the back end of the rotation, Matthew Liberatore, a former top starting prospect for the Cardinals, now turned reliever. He's whatever, trying to figure out his role. Ryan Fernandez, another guy, was a Rule 5 pick from the Boston Red Sox, has ended up being a 3.5 ERA last year. A 1-win player. Jojo Romero, another 3.5 ERA guy in the bullpen from the left side. Then it kind of drops off a little bit. Kyle Lee was okay. John King was really solid, but then you get Ryan O'Brien and Gordon Graceffo, who spent some time in AAA last year, called up and wasn't really sticking for this group. It's unfortunate that their bullpen is not really the way it could be because their pitching could really carry this lineup and allow them to feel a little bit better. And you look at the guys that you're relying on to be starters for this team going forward. Quinn Matthews, Tink Hentz, both guys that are going to start the year in AAA Memphis and hopefully eventually find their way to St. Louis. I hope they don't go too quick because I want to be able to watch them in person up here in Memphis. But those are guys that they're going to be relying on in this rotation going forward. Another guy, Michael McGreevy, who has a chance to really be a guy in this bullpen or in the rotation. It really could depend on what they need. Tekoa Roby, shout out TK, kind of from Pensacola. Always got to give a shout out to the guys that I played against. He's got electric stuff. They really like him over there. Nasty curveball. He'll start the year in Memphis and hopefully find his way to the MLB pretty quickly as well. But when you're looking at the pitching prospects and you look at the position prospects, unfortunately, outside of J.J. Weatherholt, who was their first-round pick this past year out of West Virginia, it kind of is catcher, and then one infielder and Thomas Segis, who's going to be up on the roster as a bench bat. Again, this is why they brought in Chaim Bloom, is to be able to kind of translate everything into a real operating organization with a good farm system and a fluent transition between AAA and the major league level. I don't really have the Cardinals doing too much this year. I eventually see them kind of blowing things up, trading Arenado, trading Contreras, trading Sonny Gray, maybe Fetty. They're not going to be able to trade Michaelis or Matz. They might trade Helsley just to kind of say, you know what, screw it. Let's get our hands off of everything. Let's restart from the scratch, and let's get this thing rolling underneath some of our young guys and hope that we can fix them and get them going forward. Now, another team in this division that kind of focused on young guys, and they went out this offseason. We talked about this in the first episode, and getting one of the all-time great managers in Terry Francona, are the Cincinnati Reds, and their team is young, but their team is ready, and I think they have a chance to really compete here this year. I don't know how much they'll be able to compete with some injuries and some inexperience from some of the guys, but I really like what they're building in Cincinnati, and obviously I'm never going to hate when Tito gets a chance to manage in the MLB anymore. The lineup, really solid, good balance between lefties and righties. Obviously, this whole organization is surrounded by one guy, and it's Elly De La Cruz at shortstop. That is the main guy you look at. This is a 5-win player, 218 strikeouts, which is the concern for him, but the one thing to note about him is the 260 batting average with the 800 OPS, 119 OPS plus, 15 outs above average, incredible arm, incredible range from shortstop. It helps when you're like 6'6", hit 25 homers and 76 RBIs last year, stole 67 bases. That was the highest in the majors. He's the guy you build this entire team around. You supplement him with guys like TJ Friedl, who has been a long-time journeyman in the minors, found his way to the MLB and has been serviceable in the leadoff position. Matt McLain's going to be coming back from injury this year to help you in the infield. Austin Hayes, they get in free agency, split time between the Orioles and Phillies last year. Traded for Gavin Lux. We talked about that in the first episode. How is that going to play out? When you look at his stats and you watch him play, it's a different thing. The stats doesn't tell the whole story of how Gavin Lux really played last year. Tyler Stevenson has turned himself into a really solid and dependable big league catcher. And then you're really just rounding it out with Jake Fraley, Jaime Candelario, 2 veterans, and then Will Benson, a project piece at in right field. Really okay defender. I wouldn't say good, but okay. Just not serviceable at the plate. They traded for Jose Trevino to be behind the plate. Other guys like Santiago Espinal, Christian Encarnacion Strand, who's got a lot of pop, Stuart Fairchild, really good defender in the outfield. Those are kind of your bench pieces. This is what I'm really excited about with the Reds and why I think that they can have a little bit more success immediately than when they could kind of push back on their development and how quickly their timeline is because their rotation, their bullpen are ready to compete right now. And it all starts with Hunter Green, who made his first All-Star appearance last year, was a 6-win player, had a 2.75 ERA and 150 innings pitched, struck out 169 guys, ERA plus of 160, 60% better than most of the league, 3.4 FIP, 101 WHIP, had 10 strikeouts per 9. It's always going to be about control with Hunter Green. He throws it really hard, but the control is not going to be there completely. That's just kind of his development that he's going to have to work on going forward in his career. They traded for Brady Singer. We talked about it last episode with Jonathan India over in Kansas City. The Gators get traded for each other. Brady Singer is one of the mainstays in this rotation, a guy that had a really good year last year, struck out 8.5 per 9, 3.7 ERA. It's all about just unlocking the potential with Singer. He's got amazing stuff to be able to strike guys out. We saw it in college and we saw it in the younger parts of his career. Now, can he kind of piece it together, find the command of the strike zone, and turn his strikeout pitches that haven't been strikeout pitches in the majors into ground ball pitches, and that's what his sinker can eventually become. And I think that's going to be one of the pitches that he has to rely on the most because, quite frankly, he's not striking the same guys out that he was before, and he just needs to turn into a guy that can pitch the contact immediately and allow the defense to play behind him. And Singer is a guy that can command the zone enough to do so. Other top prospects from this organization in Nick Lodolo, who has just battled injuries his entire career, has never really found the consistency, but maybe with a healthy offseason under his belt, he has the opportunity to come into a season and strike out a lot of guys. Last year with 9.5 strikeouts per 9 in only the 115 innings pitched that he had, he could still prove to be really, really valuable. Obviously, he was a top prospect, so there's high praise for him and high expectations about him, and they know that the potential is in there to unlock Other guys in the rotation, Nick Martinez, a traveled veteran, converted reliever to starter, was really solid last year. They gave him the qualifying offer. He'll be around, and he's a ground ball pitcher, pitch to contact. Andrew Abbott, the other guy, similar situation. Not going to strike out many guys compared to the rest of the guys in the rotation, but he's going to pitch to contact. He does give up a lot of walks, which can turn to be an issue for this team, but it can be supplemented out with him and Graham Ashcraft, who is in this bullpen, has starting experience. Last year started 15 games in all 15 that he played in 77 innings pitched. His issue, again, the walks, the hard hits. He throws it hard. Not really too much movement. He throws a cutter and a slider. They look the exact same, and that is the issue. You got to eliminate one or the other. I'd say eliminate the cutter, let the slider play off the fastball and your sinker that you work with, and allow the rest to ride with it. In the bullpen, Alexis Diaz kind of had a meltdown at the beginning of the year last year, kind of figured it out towards the end of the year, ended up with a 4 ERA, 28 saves for this ball club. Taylor Rogers, a traveled veteran for this team that has come over in the offseason from San Francisco, a 2.5 ERA while with the Giants last year. Emilio Pagan, nothing really to be excited about. Walks guys a lot, gets hit pretty hard, but he's another guy that has experience in these games that can help this younger pitching staff. Sam Moll had a really good year for them last year. Tony Santillan had a really good year. Brett Suter, a really good year. Scott Barlow coming over from the Royals. Nothing really to be excited about there, but he's another guy at the end of the bullpen or the beginning of the bullpen that, hey, you're down 4, you're down 5, you need to just kind of eat some innings. Let Scott Barlow run out there and help it out. The main thing for this Reds organization is you look straight towards that depth in the minor leagues, and you see Rhett Lauder, who is knocking on the door to be an opening day starter for this team. Chase Petty is on his way to be a reliever or starter for this team. They just drafted Chase Burns, who split his career with Tennessee and Wake Forest. He's awesome. He has electric stuff. They've got so many guys that if you just keep scrolling down the rest of their players, Connor Phillips, another dude to look at that has electric stuff. Luis May, amazing. There's so many guys in this organization, and from a throwing perspective, from a pitching perspective, that can be major impact players for this team looking forward. Other guys to kind of look at in the minors. The one guy we talked about in Noelvi Marte, who they don't project being on the opening day roster, which sucks. And he's graduated from prospect status, so he's going to be a AAA guy right now. Just find the consistency with the bat, and that is really all that matters for the Reds. I think Tito is going to change the culture of this team. I don't think they're going to crack 80 wins. I would not be surprised if they become an 80 and 82 team, and you look at them and say, okay, next year is the year that they can finally push in some chips and be able to get there and get to the next level. But ultimately, I don't think that Cincinnati is going to have what it takes to get into that upper echelon of the NL Central, like these two teams that we're about to talk about next. And we talked about this team to lead off and how they've dominated this division overall for the past 5-6 years now. And it's time for some regression, as well as some time for them to figure out where their lineup is going to be going forward. And that is the Milwaukee Brewers. And I don't think I wrote them down for a record projection, but I think they're better than what I wrote down. I have them winning 82 games this year, but I think they can win 83 to 84 when I look at it more. It's all going to be dependent on what their bullpen and their pitching rotation is going to look like. Their lineup, there is no doubt in my mind that they can do it. Jackson Chourio, one of the best young players in baseball. Electric stuff in his rookie year last year. 275 batting average, 117 OPS plus, hit 21 homers, 79 RBIs. As a leadoff hitter, stole 22 bags. Strikes out a lot, but when you're an over-aggressive player like Chourio, it's eventually going to happen. And he's a 5 outs above average player in right field. All you can ask for. Behind him, Christian Yelich, who is one of my favorite players, sneakily one of my favorite baseball players I've ever watched. And I've seen some great baseball players. I just love Christian Yelich. We all know the consistency of his injuries and his health has been a worry for this organization for a long time. Was an MVP in 2019, one of the best players in baseball for a stretch of a few years, and just Now he's gotten back surgery, so they're hoping that this has kind of cleared up everything of the issue, the nagging things that were going on last year, and can hopefully be a healthy player this year, because a 1-2-3 punch of Jackson Chourio, Christian Yelich, and then William Contreras, yes, brother of Wilson, who we just talked about in the Cardinals, this could be the best 1-2-3 punch in baseball in the next few years, honestly, because William Contreras is pushing himself into the category of best catcher in baseball, might I say. Last year, you look at it, 281 batting average, 831 OPS, 129 OPS plus. He drove in 92 guys, 23 homers, hit 37 doubles. The only issue with him is he just strikes out a lot. He struck out 139 times, and he doesn't really walk as many. But he walks a really good amount of times compared to the strikeouts he has, 78 walks to it. So this is a guy that was a 5-win player last year, has steadily gotten better. Behind the plate, he's slowly improving. It's getting there. It's going to take a little bit, but he's getting there. He once was terrible behind the dish, but now it's serviceable. So that 1-2-3 in your lineup is competing to be a top 10 group out of everybody. And behind him, Garrett Mitchell's a guy that just came up last year, really good defender. They're trying to figure him out as a hitter. Is he going to be more of a power guy? He had 8 home runs in his 196 at-bats. Other guys like Rhys Hoskins, we know his pop. We know what he can do, 26 homers last year. Bryce Terang is another guy that is an on-base guy. Along with Joey Ortiz, we talked about him in the first episode, kind of what they're going to do with the shortstop third base situation. Ortiz, one of the best young players in baseball from a defensive standpoint, 11 outs above average last year. Sal Frelick, another contact guy that's going to be getting on base. Really, really good defender. Oliver Dunn is your third baseman right now. I would not be surprised if they make a move eventually to kind of shore that up. Like we talked about with the Ryan McMahon situation, maybe they do get McMahon, and that way McMahon can slide into that 4 hole and replace Garrett Mitchell there. This is a team that, now that I'm talking about them more, I don't think they can win 82 games. I think they win more than that. I think they could rival the Cubs for being the best team in the division. Their pitching rotation, Freddie Peralta has been one of the more underrated pitchers in baseball the past few years. He's been really good. Tobias Myers. Make a note right now that I said Tobias Myers is going to be one of the breakout candidates in baseball this year. Last year, 3 ERA and 138 innings. Struck out 127 guys. Had a FIP of 3.9, sure, a little worse, but it's okay. When you have an 8.3 strikeouts per 9, you're not really walking anybody. You're not giving up too many homers, not giving up as many hits. I love Tobias Myers a lot. Nestor Cortez comes over from the Yankees in the Devin Williams trade. Aaron Savalier's here as well. They just signed Jose Quintana last week, but I think the X factor for this is Brandon Woodruff coming off of surgery. They've signed him to rehab and be with this team. He can come back in the second half of this year and be an unbelievable addition at the trade deadline as your trade acquisition at that point. The bullpen's going to be a little rough because you lose your all-star closer in Devin Williams, but Trevor McGill is easily serviceable to come in and fill that void, as he did for most of the season while Williams was out. 21 saves in his 48 games, had a 2.72 ERA. Really didn't walk too many guys, had 50 strikeouts to 14 walks. That's really good. Other guys, Jared Koenig, who could be at the end of the bullpen, had some times where he's a spot starter last year to be an opener. Joel Payamps has sneakily been one of the better relievers in all of baseball, a 3 ERA last year. 59 strikeouts to 18 walks. I really love Payamps. Had a .966 whip. That's what you want. That's what you're looking for out of a reliever. Brian Hudson, another dude, had a sub-2 ERA out of the pen. Nick Mears, a wipe-up guy, a mop-up bullpen arm. Elvis Peguero, another sub-3 ERA. Connor Thomas, Rule 5 pick, sub-3 ERA. Tyler Alexander, former top prospect Tyler Alexander with the Tigers, and then promised with the Rays out of the pen. He's there too. He can eat some innings if need be, but the more I talk about them, I really like this Brewers team. And then you're only sitting here waiting for guys like Jefferson Quero to be able to come up. Jacob Mizorowski, who is just right there on the edge to come into your rotation. And now next thing you know, when you're looking at the second half, you're looking at Peralta, Myers, Cortez, Woodruff, and Mizorowski to be in your rotation. And guys like Savaglia and Quintana can just move to the pen and and take those other guys out who aren't going to be able to compete and be there in the back end of your rotation. Those are the guys you slide in and feel so comfortable about. And when you come down the stretch next year in a situation like they were last season playing in the wild card against the Mets, you have the opportunity to have all of these arms out of the pen that have experience, that have the stuff to be able to get you over. And this is where this team becomes way more valuable than anybody could ever expect them to be. Are they better than last year's team? No, from a pitching standpoint, and that is the only reason why. But a lot of people have this team winning 81 games, 82 games. I fell into the bait, but the more I talk about it, this team could probably win 83 to 84 games, maybe even 85, and sneak up on the Cubs because the Cubs are going to be amazing this year. And they went out and made one of the biggest trades and acquisitions of the offseason by getting Kyle Tucker from the Houston Astros. This is a 5-win player, hit 290 last year, 993 OPS, 181 OPS plus, 23 homers, 49 RBIs. Oh, and that's only in 277 plate appearances. 339 plate appearances, 277 at-bats. Only played in 78 games with injury. This is a player that, when healthy, is a top 5 to 10 player in baseball. He's an MVP candidate and is up for a contract this offseason. The Astros obviously didn't want to pay him. They don't want to pay anybody at this point, it seems like, except for Jose Altuve. They'd probably play left field, which is the dumbest thing I've ever seen. But Kyle Tucker now gets to go to the Cubs and have the opportunity to shine in a completely different division, in a completely different league, and show everybody that, hey, I'm worth $400 million. I'm worth $500 million even maybe as well. And then you got guys around him that are going to supplement him perfectly. Ian Happ is your leadoff guy. That's perfect. 4-win player, 341 on-base percentage, 120 OPS plus. Ian Happ has been one of the most underrated players for so long for this team, ever since he got called up. Switch hitting outfielder, just does his job. 25 homers, 86 RBIs. He does his job. He's so good for this team, so consistent, and he is perfect to have leading off. And then right behind him, another guy falls under the radar, Seiya Suzuki, who was highly touted whenever he was coming from Japan to the United States, picked the Cubs. People were wondering, why did you pick the Cubs? And it obviously has paid off for him, hitting 290, 993 OPS, as 283, 848 OPS, 138 OPS plus, pops 21 homers, 73 RBIs, even steals a couple bags for you, but 27 doubles. That's another number. 27 doubles and 6 triples. That is extremely valuable out of Seiya Suzuki. Sure, he might be one of the worst defenders you can watch out there, but he can hit the ball, and they have him at DH this year. Behind him, Michael Busch came over from the Dodgers last year in a trade for UNC Almonte, came over and instantly hit for this team, had shown the pop, 21 homers for them last year. Dansby Swanson, a guy that they traded for, is super valuable to the team defensively. Will he be the same hitter? All I need from Dansby Swanson, last year he hit 242, a 312 on-base percentage, 701 OPS, but he's an 18 outs above average player. All I need is Dansby Swanson to be half of the player that he was 2 years ago with Atlanta, or 3 years ago with Atlanta. All I need is just him to play half as good as he did that year. And this Cubs team, the ceiling raises from 84 to 85 wins to 87 to 88 wins just by him being a above league average hitter, which he wasn't last year. And obviously was battling some injuries throughout the season and the year before. So obviously it wasn't exactly what they were expecting. Who they're going to have playing third base now? They try to go after Alex Bregman. He obviously goes to Boston. They're going to call up Matt Shaw, it seems like, to be their third baseman, one of their top prospects last year in AAA. Hit 284, 867 OPS, 21 homers for Matt Shaw, 31 stolen bases, electric player. And this guy that's hidden right after him is even more electric, and Pete Crow Armstrong, one of the fastest baseball players on the planet. 14 outs above average, really good defender. He's not going to hit for a good average, really even get on base as much, and that's kind of the thing they've been working on with him. But if you can find that potential that Pete Crow Armstrong had in the minor leagues, you're looking at a guy that can be a leadoff hitter for when Ian Happ is done, or even move Ian Happ down in the order a little bit to allow PCA to be their leadoff guy. And then after them, John Birdie, he's just a stopgap guy for Nico Horner whenever he returns from injury. And then Miguel Amaya, who they have him projected to be the starting catcher. He's just a long-time prospect in the organization, which is why they might show loyalty to him. But they signed Carson Kelly in the offseason. He's a much better defender. Would not be surprised if they go with him on opening day. And as I mentioned with Birdie, Nico Horner's going to be coming back. He is ruled out and won't travel with the team for the Tokyo series. However, they expect him to return to the team upon returning to the States for that opening weekend of the MLB season starting on the 27th. This is a guy who's an amazing defender, 11 outs above average, 101 OPS plus, 31 stolen bases from Horner last year, 4-win player. This is the ceiling that I'm talking about with this team. When Swanson's on his stuff, Horner's on his, Ian Happ is playing well, Seiya Suzuki's mashing balls, Bush is mashing balls. If Matt Shaw can come up and be a league average hitter, Pete Crow Armstrong can figure out to be a league average hitter. Obviously, Kyle Tucker is going to be the important piece in this lineup that's going to mold everything together. This is a team that could win more than 85 games that I haven't projected at. And we haven't even talked about the pitching rotation and bullpen. Shota Imanaga, leading off the pitching rotation, will start the first game in the Japan series against the Dodgers. It'll be Yamamoto versus Imanaga, the two Japanese star pitchers that have come over to the MLB and dominated last year in his rookie year. First year in the States, 173 and a third innings pitched, had a 2.91 ERA. He's not going to be the guy who strikes out the world, but his stuff plays. It's a fly ball pitcher, and at Wrigley, it didn't look as bad as everybody projected. The next guy below him that's going to be a part of that series as well, Justin Steele. Should have been a Southern Miss Golden Eagle, decided to go to the MLB, and obviously paid off for him, throwing a 3 ERA and 134 innings pitched, was battling some injuries as well last year. Soft contact guy, good sinker, not going to throw it too hard, probably around 94, 95. But he's got the stuff from the left side that is good enough to play and be a top of the rotation starter. Jameson Taillon's a guy they gave a lot of money to a few off seasons ago. He's given them serviceable innings and not been horrible like he was in his 1 year with the Yankees. Matthew Boyd, they signed this offseason, who showed up in the second half of the season for the Guardians last year, was awesome in their postseason, relied on him heavily, especially giving him the nod to be the Game 5 starter in the ALDS against the Tigers, and got the job done and was super, super valuable for them. Threw a sub-3 ERA in his 39 innings pitched. Built off the momentum, was really highly touted in Detroit, had some injuries, dealt with some things, got cut, then obviously found his way with the Guardians. Can he translate that from Cleveland and their pitching foundation to Chicago and what they've got? Time will tell, and I think it's going to be an easy transition. And then the last guy they got, Colin Ray, he's kind of a holder for this team, former Brewer, until Javier Assad gets back from injury, which they're not expecting him for a few weeks after the season starts. The bullpen, they traded for Ryan Presley, so they got two new Astros on the team. Ryan Presley, obviously, if you watch the World Series the past 5 years, you've seen Ryan Presley pitch plenty of times. Last year wasn't a good year for him, but maybe a new change of scenery and just a whole environment change for him might untap a new potential within Ryan Presley in the back half of his career. Porter Hodge was really good, sub-2 ERA in 43 innings pitched. Ryan Brazier, who was one of my least favorite players on the Red Sox, turns to the Dodgers and becomes an amazing reliever just because he has to throw one new pitch at a cutter and becomes instantly better. Tyson Miller, who surprisingly was amazing in 62 innings pitched, a 2.32 ERA. That's a guy you want to look at for going forward with Tyson Miller. Nate Pearson, they traded for him at the deadline this last year with Toronto, was one of the top pitching prospects as a starter in baseball for a while with the Blue Jays, was their top prospect. Just never really figured it out, walked a lot of guys. Obviously the control issue that plays hand in hand with what I just said. He's always going to strike out guys, throws electric stuff. Throws it really hard. Doesn't really know where it's going. They're trying to convert him to a reliever. Caleb Thielbar, just a guy that gets you over. Julian Merriweather, another guy to get you over. Keegan Thompson, who I really like a lot in 30 innings pitched, had a 2.6 ERA, was one of the better relievers for this Cubs team last year. I think them and the Brewers have a chance to battle one another for the top of the division spot. I think it's going to be close. I think the Cubs have the ability, when Nico Horner comes back, to unlock a better lineup. I think that the Cubs have a better 1-2 punch as a starter. I give the Brewers a lot of credit for their bullpen and the back end of their lineup and the 1-2-3 punch that they have. But I think the depth within the Cubs organization gives them a little bit more of an upper hand, and that hasn't even given into the fact that Cade Horton could play into this year's whole picture of this team. And if that's the case, this team only just gets better with him. Owen Cassidy can make an impact maybe in the MLB here pretty soon. Kevin Alcantara as well. But the guys that they have here right now are good enough to be able to get this team to a division win. And the Cubs and Brewers will be battling it out all season. We'll know it. One team will win the division. The other team will get a wild card spot. That's most likely the case scenario here with the NL Central. But there's some good teams in the NL West and good teams in the NL East. And on Monday, we're going to be talking about the NL West. That's covering all the teams, including the defending World Series champion Los Angeles Dodgers, who somehow, some way, just continue to get better and have infinite amounts of money that they can spend on whoever they want to. Hopefully that this episode gave you guys some good clearance on some of these teams in the NL Central and the outlook on their season and how they will be going for years forward. As I mentioned, we do this because the Cubs are playing in Tokyo against the Dodgers. So I had to get this out to show you how good this Cubs team is going to be that you're going to be able to watch next week. I know it's at 5 in the morning. It's going to be tough to watch, but maybe you record it and watch it after, watch the highlights, or keep up with it a little bit just to give you a little look out for what you can see from this Cubs team. I appreciate everybody for listening. If you have gotten this far through, I appreciate it more than you could ever imagine. We're going to keep trying to get this thing rolling. Follow me on all my socials at The Punch Out. I guess it's The Punch Out Pod on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok. We're posting on there. We're going to try to figure out how to post on TikTok. There's some things that I'm trying to work on and remember how to do and learn how to do, but hopefully that thing starts kicking off, and with that, my Instagram Reels and YouTube Shorts, and go to the YouTube and you can watch me. You can also watch me on Spotify as well. There's a video version. Figured out how to do that. So much of my face, so much of my voice you'll be hearing for the foreseeable future, as long as I continue to enjoy doing this. And if you guys enjoy listening to it as well, you guys are the biggest supporters that I have, and that's why I keep doing it, because I know that I've got a good, strong foundation and a backing from people that I know that care about what I have to say. So I appreciate you guys all for listening, and I'll see you guys on Monday.